Hello, everyone. I'm Karine Hirn. I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer of East Capital Group, based in Hong Kong. And today with me, I have George Svensson, who is ESG Analyst, based in Stockholm. So 2024 has been called an election year. Almost 50% of the world population has gone to the poll. But there was one election that a lot of people were awaiting, and obviously it's the election in the US. And there are some major implications of the return of Donald Trump to the White House for the US itself, but also for global markets, for emerging markets, and also for sustainability and climate action. George, why is that?
Well, we do have some big statements to increase US production of fossil fuels, to pull the US out of the Paris Agreement, and that the climate change is a hoax, and that the Inflation Reduction Act is a green scam from Trump's side.
Right, yes, so definitely the MAGA movement is not to make America green again, and it's something different. So today we are going to try to unpack in this short seminar what the most important topics are. We have discussed and come up with 4 main topics. The first one is about climate change. Second one, geopolitics. Third one, the US domestic priorities. And the fourth and the last one about responsible investment. So George, let's start with climate, and let's begin with this question. What can Trump impact be?
It will be easier to pass laws, and one worry is that a lot of the green policies that Biden has put into effect through the Biden administration will be removed. However, it's also important to highlight that the US is now producing more oil than any other country in history after a 24% jump in oil production over the last 4 years. We have a graph to show this right here. Other significant trends shifts which happened during Biden's mandate. We could see price of solar power and wind power drop below the price of energy from fossil fuels, but we will discuss this a little bit later as well. As for now, it's important to monitor who will be appointed and keep her or his job at the various administrations, such as the EPA, Interior Department, and Energy Department. Let's now move on to another topic, namely geopolitics. Karine, you have been based in Asia for 14 years. What do you have to say about Trump's election impact on geopolitics and the overall climate policies?
Well, it's a really important question. First of all, definitely, if the US leaves the Paris Agreement, as Trump did during his first mandate, and he's been saying that he will do, it will definitely not be positive. It's hard to find any positive statement around that. And why is that? So first of all, I mean, as you just said, George, the US is already the largest oil producer in the world, so the trends, it wouldn't be positive. Secondly, other countries might want to do the same, basically getting an excuse to scale back on their climate ambitions. We just had the COP29 ending in Baku, basically yesterday, and it ended with a deal, but it's been watered down, and people saw, for instance, the Argentinian delegation leaving the COP 2019 as a move maybe for the Javier Milei, the Argentinian leader, to basically stay closer to Trump on this position on climate. But when you think about it, if you leave the Paris Agreement and if you leave the world of climate policies, you are basically losing an opportunity to shape these global policies. So my take is that if it happens, again, I'm not saying it's good news, but if it happens, it will basically galvanize other countries. For instance, China is already very well positioned as a massive investor in clean tech and renewable energy. And some other countries as well might also be basically taking the lead. So speaking of China, obviously, another topic that is related to geopolitics and the Trump election is the threat of imposing very high tariffs on the number of goods coming from China to reduce the trade deficit that the US has with China. And a lot of these goods are so-called green goods. I mean, we're all thinking about solar panels, electric vehicles, and other such solutions which are needed for the climate. So here, I think the time will tell. we do believe that it's going to be really hard to compete against China, and a US protectionist policy will just maybe actually make it the other way around, that it will basically give China even stronger of a lead in the climate race and in the positioning. If you think about all the countries from the so-called global south that are desperately in need of clean tech and renewable energy and solution for climate adaptation, well, who will they buy from? Of course, they will buy from China. So, I think it's worth remembering that obviously the MAGA movement is very internal. It's to make America great again, and not necessarily thinking about geopolitics, actually, but in this case, this might be actually an implication. So now let's go back to the US, and let's discuss about this focus of Americans on America and creating growth and resilience and jobs and so forth. What would be the impact on sustainability?
Key priority is indeed to cut taxes. In order to do so, the new administration must cut expenses to compensate for lower fiscal revenue. But where can they find these cuts that will add up to 4.5 trillion US dollars? Maybe by cutting credits and subsidies under the Inflation Reduction Act that was signed into law by Biden in August 2022, and that Trump himself calls the Green New Scam. Time will tell, but there are at least two reasons to believe that it might not. First, the IRA-related announcements are massive. You can see that they have 130 billion US dollar of investments. That also leads to almost 500,000 jobs in the next 5 years. And with electric vehicles being the largest sector in terms of both capex and new jobs. And there is also the Elon Musk factor that we need to take into account for this.
I think we actually have an interesting table to show here about this announcement, both again in terms of capex and jobs. And basically the point is that it will go against Trump's objectives if this investment that have been announced would actually not materialize and not happen. But there's also another reason, isn't there, George, for the fact that the IRA might not be completely cancelled or removed?
Yeah. So secondly, Republicans will strive for these IRA benefits to stay because of 80% of the money spent so far has flown into Republican congressional districts. And more than 50% of the announced projects and jobs are in red states. Besides, power-hungry AI, that we all know is a boom right now, is another reason for why other sources of carbon-free energy are expected to surge. There will be new, not policy-driven, power demand cycle surge of power demand to AI and hyperscales like Microsoft and Amazon, who, in order to abide with the carbon reduction projects, are compelled to buy green energy, really.
And that's interesting because I remember during the first mandate of Trump, 2016 to 2020, that's also exactly what happened. So basically, you've seen these major corporations buying a lot of green energy, and basically you had this situation where there was a lot as well of grassroots movements and companies and other kind of stakeholders taking the lead on this discussion. So I think in terms of green energy, it's really important to remember, as I was mentioning in the very beginning, or maybe it was you, that the renewable energy is today cheaper than oil and gas. So if you actually want to boost competitiveness, you want to attract foreign direct investment into the US, and you've got this huge demand in energy because of AI, of course, you want to keep and grow this clean energy. So that's something worth mentioning. I think when we look at, we're showing this table with the different things or sectors that have benefited from IRA credits and subsidies. The jury again is still out, but most people think that for nuclear energy, for instance, is going to be a real boost. The current plans that have been passed recently are for the US to triple nuclear power capacity by 2050, and they will do all kind of things, such as extending the lifetime of some existing power capacities, but also, of course, innovative solutions such as this small molecular nuclear reactors and other innovations. So really, again, much more to come probably in this space. Now we're going to speak about the fourth topic for today, which is the implications of a Trump administration on the world of responsible investment and ESG. George, what's your take on that one?
Well, I mean, this has been going on for quite a while already. ESG has become politicized. For instance, huge focus on woke and anti-woke aspects, diversity, equity, and inclusion is part of this. And all of this created a backlash with detrimental causes, really. Anti-ESG regulations, risk for legal actions, means that many US asset managers and owners have, for instance, left collective agreements or engagement initiatives such as Climate Action 100 and NSAM, which stands for Net Zero Asset Management. Will the new administration push for deregulation provide an opportunity for a new start? We don't really know. I mean, it's necessary to see ESG factors as material, hence worth considering. But here again, the US stepping back in the area provides an opportunity for others to take this leadership role instead as well. So in international rulemaking, other countries, but also state level, for instance, California in the United States, which is huge.
Exactly. I mean, I was actually last week in Hong Kong participating in a very interesting ESG panel of conference with some companies coming from mainland China and regulators. And you look at it's the contrast is enormous between the US, where you've got basically this ESG backlash and this discussion about, for instance, you don't want to push companies to disclose even their like scope 1 and 2 emissions. Whereas in China, they're actually doubling down. They're just about to implement very strict ESG disclosure policies, rules and requirements, which are basically aligned with this international standard board, sustainability standard board, the IASB, and even adding this double materiality, which has been a very important factor within European disclosure systems. So you've got this situation in the US, and then you've got what's going on in China. And here, our view is that a bit the same like in climate, is that basically if you decide to deregulate massively or to disengage on these topics, you will not be able to kind of shape these policies going forward. So in conclusion, really, I think, George, we could say that, again, this new US administration will definitely prove to be challenging for many sustainability issues, but we should not think it's only doom and gloom. There would be other countries, there would be other stakeholders. Even in the US, you will have corporations, states, which are also have a huge impact on the agenda. So even if MAGA is definitely not make America green again, the point is America has never been that green to start with. And now that you have no longer this basically almost this this situation where you have a country like US being the largest oil producer in the world, and at the same time claiming some kind of action on climate. Now, if this doesn't happen, I think a lot of other stakeholders will have to come and take this race. So it's worth definitely watching this space, and we will probably have more to talk about during the coming months and weeks. Also looking at the who will be appointed to all these positions and administrations, which also have a lot to say in this regard. On this note, George and we want to say thank you for your attention, and we are going to soon publish a short article discussing on the same topics with more details. So stay tuned. We'll be happy if you have any comments, any questions, please let us know. Thank you.